It is Friday, the 1st of March 2024, and if you're Welsh, I do believe it's St. David's Day. So warm welcome and hope you have a marvellous weekend, even though it's not actually a day off. But if I'm wrong, please let me know. Now, today, let's talk about the marriages in China, but let's do a little bit of background with it as well, because it can be sometimes similar and sometimes completely different. Imagine it's the 1960s in England or in America. It was sometimes sort of expected that you would marry, especially for women, about 22, 23. For my mum, certainly she did, and she had me when she was 30 years old, so it was always easy to work out the age, the ages of both of us. But in China, if you are a woman and you are over 30, basically you're called a leftover. A man doesn't want you because you're too old. But the man who's over 30, let's say 31, 32, is like a king. He's like the prime target for the women because he has a job, he's stable, he has a house and he has a car. It is expected in some cases, not all, but in some cases, that the man has to have a house or an apartment and a car and a stable job in order for him to get married. And that's what supposedly the young Chinese girl or the young Chinese woman is looking for. And I think personally this is totally wrong. The best time of your life, I think, is from 26, maybe 25 to 30. You're young, you're single, you want to travel, you want to do things while you're young. This is a surprising statistic. The people who get married in China at 26 years old, there's a 60% chance of you getting divorced by the time you are 34. The reason is that you've missed out, or my opinion is that you missed out your fun. So after the 7-year itch, so to speak, you sort of go, ooh, he's handsome, oh, she's beautiful, and it may be a affair of some sort. But the old style parents would sort of say it's okay for the man to do this, but it's definitely not okay for the women to do this. Imagine in this scenario, when you were young and you went to a bar and you went to a pub and you said, oh, I met this beautiful girl last night and we spent the night together. It was amazing. The guy said, oh, well done, good job, buy you a drink. But if a girl did this, it's sort of like, ooh, well, you're not a good girl, are you? Like that. So it's a change of the times. So what happens in China, and related to the title of this, that grandmothers do want, and their mothers do want their kids to get married. And it's to do with face value. If your child is not married, they worry more about their neighbors and their people around them rather than themselves. For me, I don't really care what people actually think of this, of, let's say, Sophie and our relationship. We're not married, but we're like a couple. But we do actually do a little bit of a white lie saying, oh, husband and wife. So it doesn't bother people. It just it's okay. They think we are. Does it matter? No, not at all. But in China, it's sort of like the kids are like forced to get hooked up with a boyfriend and girlfriend, then they're expected to get married. And what their grandparents do occasionally in different parks around China is advertise their children, their grandchildren, and saying, graduate from Shanghai University, salary is 150,000 RMB per year, has house, has car, nice person. So it's all the things that this boy or this girl has achieved, and they would try to do matchmaking. Do I agree with this? No. Do the young Chinese people agree with this? No, they don't. If you go and speak to them, if you have the opportunity, they just want to be like left alone. Now, maybe don't get me wrong, but maybe you find true love like Cinderella when you're 26 years old and it's all perfect. And yeah, get married and you can have a happy life. Maybe you do like the old traditional style. You would say now more in the West, the average age of people getting married is like 29, 30, 31 for both genders. Because you've had your fun, you've settled down, you've got a job, and you fall in love. And the reason why you marry is only because you love each other, not for the actual statistics of your life or what you actually have got and achieved and the money and the property and the car, etc., etc. So I don't agree, but I can accept it. And you would say it's similar in some aspects to the arranged marriage in India or in the Middle East or in Pakistan, for example, where the mum and dad would find another mum and dad and they would arrange their daughter and their son to get married. Now, some young people do like this and say, yeah, this is tradition, and there have been many happy marriages. But I would say modern Indian people or people who have that kind of tradition don't like it. They want to find it. It's not the Western way. You get married for one reason only, and that should be love. It shouldn't be because of the assets that you have. So it's quite sad to actually say that a lot of the younger generation do sort of like submit to this tradition, and they get married at 26 or 27 for the girl. The boy's like 31, 32. They live together in the husband's house that he bought, and it can be a stable life, and maybe they will eventually fall in love with each other, or it's just something part of your life in a way that, well, everyone expects it. You don't want to lose face value with that. So you don't want to lose respect of your other neighbors, when really, should you worry what your neighbors think? If they're kind and polite, they may not agree with it, but they can accept it in that respect. What do you think? Eventually, this will kind of disappear, because the younger generation one day obviously will become the older generation. They will have children and grandchildren. They obviously want the best for their child or grandchildren. They obviously want the best. But I think they would just leave them alone with it, because maybe they've been through this torturous ideal and they have submitted and they haven't been happy, or completely the opposite. They have been happy with it. But I think it will slowly disappear. Like when my mum, she got married at 22. Now in England, that's like too young to get married. But 4 great kids, including me, well, 3 great kids and myself, and that was it, done and dusted. Did my mum have a happy marriage? I would say in general, yes to that. But that's going sort of into my own thing. So what about you? What age did your parents get married? I think my grandparents and my grandmother got married about, it was obviously, I don't know. Maybe they got married in 1930, for example, something like that. And my grandparents, both my grandparents, that they lived together for a very long time, and they seem to be, if I can remember correctly, actually very happy with their life. Did they love each other? Yeah, I can guess they did. Or they were very good at hiding the fact related to it. And the thing about a relationship, you sort of get used to your partner. They grow on you step by step. Yeah. I have a beautiful partner, Sophie. I love her very much with all my heart. We're not married. We don't have kids. We have 2 cats, but we're just happy in that way. And it's sort of like, I don't care about her past. It was before me. But I do care about our future together. So the key thing to take away from this is just acceptance. And traditions do move forward. So if I go back to my mum, she got married around about 22 years old, and now you could say 70, 80, 90 years later, it's more common that people get married at 30, and the parents take a back seat whether their kids get married or not. They would like possibly grandchildren to be there. So, but in China, that is to show off. They say, how many grandkids do you have? Oh, I have 5, or I have 8, etc., etc. The one-child policy in China has now been banned, and I think now it's the free-child policy. But like the rest of the world, raising a child in China costs an arm and a leg. So a lot of newly married couples, they only want one child. And here's another thing, when they do actually get married, and maybe they're pushed into the marriage, then they're pushed into having children, the children would stay in the grandparents' house in the countryside for, let's say, 1 year, and the parents come home once a year for the Chinese New Year. Who are the victims here? It's not the parents, it's the children, the innocent, who don't see, but they really love their parents. I was watching a video the other day on China Observer, and it was showing about the parents leaving their grandparents' house and their grandchildren to go back into the city to work. And maybe this is like 500, 600, 700 kilometers away. And this is the only chance the kids will see once or twice a year their parents, which is a great shame. So the thing is, why did they have kids? Well, because they were sort of obliged to, because of tradition, whether they wanted to or not. And then basically they're fobbed off to their grandparents, who are like happy that they have their children again, but the children are not happy because they want to be with their parents. So it's like a forced marriage, that you're obliged to do it. But I would say the younger generation now are actually slowly changing, and they don't want to be a person basically forced into something because it's tradition. And at the same time, they don't want to be someone who's been called a leftover, especially for the women. So I think it's slowly changing. Give it another 10 years, it could be a little bit different. I don't think it'll be totally different. I think it'll be a little bit different. And you would actually see the marriage age in China sort of like, instead of being so young at 25 or 26, it's more like in their late 20s and possibly early 30s, where the professionals and the experts say this is the actual ideal time to get married. I think that's all I got to moan about for today. Thank you so much for your time. And if you want to support this channel, just click the subscribe, click the bell button, click the share button, put this on your social media if you agree or disagree. It's a good discussion for debate. It's a good dinner conversation maybe with your friends, regardless if you're sort of like 25 or like 55. Do you think of the old traditions as a good thing, or do you think it's a bad thing? What about all these other countries? And maybe in the West, you could say how lucky that you can be, because you have that freedom, you have that democracy, and you don't have some outdated traditions. That does happen in every country, but it's sort of faded, you could say, in the United States. Let's say you're a grandparent, and you have 2 grandchildren. Yeah, of course you would want to see them get married. Of course you want grandkids, but you're not going to force it upon them, like demanding. And the face value of it, you could say, in the United States of America, does it matter that your kids are not married? Not really. Do your neighbors actually care? Not really. So it's all food for thought, but these leftovers and these young marriages, it's part of China. But I think it's going to be an old part of China, maybe in the next 10 or 20 years. My name is James. This is the Asia channel. God bless to all. Thank you.